Hey folks, welcome to Straight Talk Whiskey, episode number 4. I'm Nick, and thanks for joining us today on our 4th episode, because we'll be heading to the Scottish side of our whiskey journey and tasting some Macallan 12-year-old single malt Scotch. So let's jump right into some notes that we get from the box and bottle, and then, hop right into our tasting. So Macallan, does a pretty nice job of the packaging here. Nice little cardboard box. And they've got a little tasting session for you, which is nice, if you're pouring a glass alone and you just want a little guide. And on the back, they have kind of their 6 pillars of excellence, which is actually kind of a fun read if you get a chance, because it goes through their process in making it. Now, this Macallan is bottled at 43% ABV, which is pretty nice because it's a little kick up from usual, and that just gives us a little more flavor to play with, which obviously is always good. Now, this Macallan is matured in sherry casks from Spain. Macallan also does sherry casks from America, as well as American bourbon casks. This particular line, if you're out there looking for it, is the Spanish sherry cask line, just so you know. Now, the mash bill, as we always talk about, isn't really much to talk about in this one because it's a single malt Scotch. So it's just malted barley. So let's open it up and see what we got going on. Now, just a little side note, the stills that they use are some of the smallest that are used in Scotland, which is kind of interesting. Now, the reason they do this is because there's more contact of the spirit with the copper of the still, which produces this fruity, light, clean spirit, which is, really interesting because about 60% of the flavor in whiskey is from the maturation, which we'll see in this one. Sherry is definitely the key player in this one. But as we said, 60% comes from the maturation, so it is nice to see kind of that other 40%, part of that being the distillation process. So being able to see that influence and kind of how they play with different ideas is really interesting when you're exploring whiskeys. So let's give it a little pour. Nice little cork sound. You always gotta love that. Now, you'll notice the past 3 reviews I've been using a kind of a brandy snifter nosing glass. Whereas today we are going to use the Glencairn because, hey, it's the traditional Scottish glass, so we might as well. Now, on the other ones, you might have seen me swirling it around a little bit before I take a nose. With this, it's 12 years old, and I don't really need to swirl it around, like it's in a whirlwind or something. A nice gentle roll will do. It's 12 years old, so in the whiskey world, got to be a little protective. There's certainly older things out there. One note, actually, is when you're going through and kind of rolling your glass around before you take a nose, is look at the legs on the side of the glass. Now, here's one trick at how you can tell the relative age of your whiskey, because we know a lot of whiskeys now don't have an age statement. So one little trick to try to guess that is look at the legs on the side. If you roll it around, you'll start to see these legs coming on the side. Now, in younger whiskeys, you'll start to see these little bubbles form, and they'll trickle down really fast. Whereas in this older 12-year Scotch, you'll see these nice kind of little like spider legs kind of crawling down nice and easily. Now that's a nice sight to see. Because it is 12-year, but if we didn't have that age statement, we would know that it is made up of older whiskeys. So just an interesting little trick for you there to try out. Now, as you can see, it's got a, as per the color, is kind of a copper gold color to it. No caramel coloring added, which personally I like, and most people would agree. But you may have your own opinion, and that's perfectly fine. So let's go ahead with the nose. So the first thing I'm getting is the sherry influence. Definitely some dried fruits like cranberry, raisins. I'm getting some wood. Yeah, wood smoke in there. A little vanilla. There's sort of like a candy bar, like a milk chocolate candy bar smell that I'm getting. A little hint of spice. Not too prevalent, so it's hard to kind of put a finger on what that actually is. Yeah, it's got a little peppery, but again, not too prevalent there. Yeah, let's go in for a taste. Now, you'll probably know if you've had Macallan before that comparatively to other scotches, it's a pretty heavy whiskey. Now, it's interesting because you get this heaviness, but definitely the spices, the sherry shows up, a little vanilla in there, the wood smoke is coming up. Fruity, definitely, those still dried fruits like I said, but almost like pomegranate in a way. Kind of the aroma you get off like cranberry pomegranate juice is definitely there. And definitely the smoke in there, like I said. The sherry, which is nice. Now, one little fact you'll notice is when I try to taste whiskey in these reviews, people will always ask, like, you know, how do you taste whiskey, basically, and that could take up a whole review in and of itself, and I'll do one of those reviews in the upcoming weeks. But as for tasting it, you know, I like to roll it around a little bit around the mouth, get it around the taste buds to kind of get the whole. Trying to get all my taste buds around this whiskey. You know, you want to taste every possible thing you can. Whatever you're tasting, it's not wrong. If you don't taste pomegranates per se, but you taste cranberry or apple, something like that, it doesn't mean that you're wrong. It just, that's what your palate is tasting. But I gotta be honest, I see some reviewers out there, and I won't name any names, but they sound like they've got a microphone inside their mouth. I'm not sure how they do it, but they swoosh around like this, you know, get a little here, get a little there, and I'm just like, nah. Because there's no way you can really, in my opinion, convey what the flavors are is if you're swooshing it around like mouthwash. Whiskey is not mouthwash. It's nice to give it a little roll around there, but you don't need to be forceful with it. Just kind of let it glide around like you're sailing the ocean on a clear day, you know. But enough of that. Let's get back in. And actually, I'm going to take little trusty water dropper here. Put it in the water. I just want to add a little drop. I just want to see. Just want to see kind of what we get. Just a drop. There we go. So just trying to see if we get any change. Now I know these whiskey reviews can't be hours and hours on end, but if you're at home, you know, just pouring yourself a glass at night, take your time. You know, we're not people who are going around slamming shots, you know, doing that kind of thing. You know, we like to enjoy it, right? So give it some time, you know, let it rest. Normally, if I were doing this, you know, I'd let it sit 15, 30 minutes, you know, come back to it, see if anything's changed. You never know. Some flavors may disappear and some may develop, but that's all part of the experience and, you know, experimenting with different things, seeing what happens. And honestly, I think that's really the fun in it. You really get to pick all these different flavors and what can you do, you know, oh, if I add just a drop more, will this change? You know, that kind of thing. So it's all about experimenting, see what you like. Can't let anybody else tell you, you know, what you should like. Again, it's all you, baby. So so let's go back and see if anything's changed. Now, at least for me, some of the sherry and the fruits are kind of taking the back seat. They're, you know, rotting off into the sunset a little bit, while the spices and the wood smoke and the vanilla stick around a little bit longer. So that's pretty interesting. The finish, smooth, sweet, a little oily. Those dried fruits, a tack of spice, kind of on there in the end. But on the whole, you know, a nice, heavy, like we said, but full-bodied, bunch of flavored. You know, it's got a little kick in the arse, which is always nice, in that spice there that we talked about, little paprika-ish, but wonderful on the whole. So yeah, and just like that, you know, we wrap up episode number 4 of these whiskey reviews, and next time for whiskey review number 5, we'll be going back to the American side of whiskey. I won't tell you what it is next, but hey, if you got comments, please feel free to comment, especially suggestions on what you'd like to see reviewed. If I can get my hands on it, you know, I'll definitely love to review it for you. So, until then, drink responsibly, as always, enjoy responsibly, have a good time, and we'll see you on the flip side.